Hello and welcome to the Vandy 24/7 podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Chris Lee. We'll be joined by an old friend of the show, Tim Thompson. We'll talk about Vanderbilt basketball. We'll get to that in just a minute. First of all, reminder, the show is also presented by our friends at Sylvan Park Ventures. More information on those guys when I get it. Basketball season is presented by the Wash House. We'll handle the cleaning, you handle the laundry. The Wash House Laundry Center has a new pickup and delivery service, so your clothes go from dirty to dazzling faster than a Commodore victory. Whether you're a student, alum, or diehard fan, we've got you covered all season long. Schedule your pickup now at washhouseclean.com. The Wash House Laundry Center, Nashville's cleanest play for Commodore Nation. Football coverage is brought to you by former Vanderbilt kicker Joe Bulovas with Bulovas Wealth Management of Raymond James. We won't have a football discussion on the show today, but if you've missed it, lots of stuff going on for Vanderbilt in the transfer portal. So go over to Vandy 247 to get all that information. Subscribe there, and you'll get all the details on that. Anyway, if there's one thing we all share, it's that our lives are all unique. At Raymond James, we believe that is worth celebrating because financial planning isn't just about numbers and figures. It is about creating the life you envision. Whether you are building a future or preparing for retirement, a Raymond James financial advisor can guide you each step of the way, all while following a plan that is uniquely yours. That is life well planned. To learn more, call financial advisor Joe Bulovas with Bulovas Wealth Management of Raymond James, 615-645-6742. Raymond James and Associates, members of New York Stock Exchange, SIPC. Always looking for sponsors. If you're interested in doing so, reach out to me at chrislee70@gmail.com. All right, this man is back from double secret stack probation. He's Tim Thompson, color commentator of Vanderbilt basketball. Tim, it's been a minute since you were on the show. Great to have you back, my friend.
It's good to be back. And I'm under the circumstances. I mean, you just can't really ask for much more. I just think that this team and, the players, the coaching staff, and, the way they played this year is just like off the charts. And, if you're a Vanderbilt fan and you haven't seen this team play, you need to come and watch them play. If you really like basketball, that it's like in its pure sense of passing and assists and making baskets, and then just good kids on top of that, it's a really fun team to watch.
It's pretty funny. The only complaint at the moment is they're only ranked 10th in the AP poll, which I think they're a top 5 team. I mean, who really cares? But that's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, you can go through all the net rankings and Ken Palms and all that kind of stuff, but the bottom line of the deal is they won every game. They're 16-0, and they won a marquee game against Alabama the other night that that I thought was telling. And then against LSU, they didn't play very well in the second half, but they found a way to manipulate points and get to the free throw line and do that kind of thing. But they're just a well-rounded team. And I can tell you right now, they really enjoy playing with each other, which is something that I really appreciate.
I'm going to get to matchups coming up this week because I think those are interesting. What are your, and this is kind of where we are, it's hard to find a lot of concerns, but what are your biggest ones at this point? I guess health of Collins and whoever else could get hurt has got to be at the top of that list.
Yeah, I mean, when we were at full strength and we had Frankie Collins, Tyler Tanner, Duke Miles all in the backcourt at the same time, they were nasty. And we went down to the Bahamas and we played a really good St. Mary's team in the finals of that thing. And they had a veteran point guard that absolutely was terrified to bring the ball up the court against Frankie Collins and Tyler and Duke Miles. He just didn't want to bring the ball up. He would throw it to somebody else and let him bring the ball up the court. And I think that's one of the things that concerns me more. I mean, you had Duke out for the New Haven game and the South Carolina game. So we had to, kind of mix and match there. But I would say that's the biggest thing that concerns me is just staying healthy. Because if we can stay healthy, we're a really good basketball team.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Tim, is you could probably use one more front court player who can play. I don't know if Mason Nicholson just done for the season or what's going on there. Maybe Leverett can give you some help. That's like the only thing I could spot other than you'd love to have Collins back.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the upcoming schedule and you start thinking about, especially a team like Florida, which we're going to play next Saturday, is, how many bigs they have. They can.
Tim is frozen on us. Hopefully that'll clear up in just a second. Yeah. Thank you guys for being here, by the way, while we wait for Tim's internet connection to unfreeze. Reminder, leave your super chats or leave your comments in the chat section. We'll get to questions later. We'll get to the mailbag later. Not sure what's happened here with Tim. Everything is good on my end, but his picture seems to be frozen. So I'm going to text him and let him know that has happened. While we're at it, I'm going to go ahead and give you our read for our mailbag. We are brought to you by Sutherland & Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call, 615-846-6200. See what your rights are. They can help you with that. Tim says something happened to his phone. So I said give him just a minute. I probably got a phone call. He's doing it on an iPhone, which I am too. Okay, here he's back, I believe. Hey, Tim, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Did you get a phone call?
I don't know what happened. Everything just froze up on me. So I'm not sure exactly how this whole thing went down, but I'm gonna. Do we have to start over?
No. We're live. I was just gonna see what the difficulty was, and we'll cut this out.
I'm sorry, it just froze up on me for some reason.
It's all good. Well, where we were, I think we were. I can't remember where you were when you cut off. We were discussing maybe big men and.
Yeah, we were talking about Florida and the the amount of big guys they have, and I think that's one of the things that when you start playing teams like that, you're going to need an extra big body, a guy 6'9", 6'10". I mean, I remember last year we played Florida. We had Carey and McLaughlin, and really they were the only two big guys that we had, and they all got in foul trouble. And next thing you know, you looked up and you had Tyler Nickel playing the 5 position against Florida, and that can't happen. We've got to have some bodies that can play against those big guys like at Florida.
I keep meaning to ask Mark in the press conference, and I always forget. With Mason Nicholson, is he available? Is there a health issue or anything? Is a red shirt even possible, something like that? Or is he just not good enough to be on the floor?
I don't know. And again, I know that he had mono early, and I'm not sure if he's fully recovered from all that. I saw him play at the Bahamas a little bit, and he knows how to play the game. He's got a good sense and a good feel of where to be, help defense, that kind of thing. Not quite as athletic as probably some of the other guys, but I'm not sure exactly what his status is.
Yeah, I've kind of been wondering. I don't know if that's a situation where if it is health, maybe at this point I say that. I mean, what if they get in the Final Four or something and really need a guy? It might be worth it to have him even for a few minutes. But at the same time, like if you can get a red shirt on him, he's a post who can help you next year when you lose most of these guys.
Yeah, you're right. And, I think, the one thing I will say about Vanderbilt now, Chris, is that staff is really good. When I say really good, I'm talking about, of course, Coach Byington, great coach. He understands the portal. He understands the NIL. All of his assistants, I think, are top notch. He delegates responsibility to those guys, and they're really, really high quality guys. And they as well understand transfer portal, NIL, what they have, high school recruiting. And that's the thing I love is that whole staff, when they get out of bed every morning, both feet hit the floor, and they're thinking about college basketball, and what they can do to win at Vanderbilt, that just really encourages me as an alumni and ex-player.
The thing that stood out to me was I was around him, I guess last year. I don't remember if it was at a press conference or what. And he said, "Hey, we're trying to win now."
Yeah.
I thought like, hey, you might slow your roll on that. You're kind of inheriting a disaster. Vanderbilt's not always been an easy place to get transfers through. He had his eye on getting this team good right away. And they were a good team last year, good enough to get to the tournament. They had some weaknesses, as we know, and maybe some guys that they could pass on this year now that they've got proof of concept. But, he first of all, that's what stuck out in my mind is he was not willing to settle for anything less than winning right away.
Well, you're exactly right. And, my take on Coach Byington is he's a very competitive person. And he wants to win right away. And he holds those kind of expectations for his players and his coaching staff. And, I mean, it permeates throughout the whole team that the expectations are high. We expect to win. And it all stems from his leadership.
What do you think about his assistants? I know you touched on it. I knew Rick Ray a little bit when he was at SEMO. He's a guy who's been a head coach in the SEC. That's a guy you love to have on your staff, a guy that's been a head coach and been in this league before. But they're recruiting at a very high level right now.
Yeah, I think they've got, guys that understand different parts of the United States. You got, Washington, D.C., you've got Texas, you got places like that. And I think that, they know coaches. They're really well connected. And I just think he's put together a really effective staff in recruiting, in evaluating other people's players, with the transfer portal. You always got to look at, whether it's Eastern Kentucky, a guy like Kimball that potentially is going to be, available next year and is a really good player. I think these guys evaluate talent, not only at the high school level, but at other schools. And that's imperative in today's college basketball. And on top of that, not only are they really good at what they do professionally, but they're really, really good people. And I think that is just, amazing that you can get the full package with what Coach Byington's put together.
Yeah, that's always the fun. Like when you cover a team that's winning and the coaches are actually nice to you, that's hard to find. To get both of those. But
yeah,
let's talk Tyler Tanner a minute. He won SEC Player of the Week today. It's wild because like last year, Tyler Tanner's claim to fame was like the guy that went 18 games or whatever without turning it over. Like he was the guy that went from the guy that doesn't make mistakes and can defend and help you do stuff to a guy that like is an alpha dog. Like if you stop the season right now, he's the SEC Player of the Year. It is. I don't know how many times I've seen a guy that goes from a guy that's kind of a really good role player whose job is, just don't screw something up, be a good teammate, to a guy that like, is the leader on a team that could get to the Final Four and its best player. I mean, to see that happen in 1 year is amazing.
Well, again, I watched him play in high school and I thought, hey, this kid can play, but you have to take that next step to the SEC level. And this is just a personal opinion, Chris. I think last year he came in and, he's one of those guys that is just a super team guy, just a great team guy. And I think he deferred a little bit too much to Hogard and to Edwards last year, because I really thought he was a better player. But he lost a little bit of confidence in his shot. And I think that set him back a little bit. But I think his work, from what I understand, he worked with Darius Garland over the summer. And he went from, 0 to 90 from a standpoint of performance. And now his confidence is so high. You can see when he walks out on the floor, he thinks he's the best player out there. And 99.9% of the time, he is the best player out there. And the thing that's amazing to me is his size. I saw a thing where a guy was comparing him to, Chris Paul, Trae Young, all those pro guys. If he's got a chance to play at the next level, and I think he does. I know a couple pro scouts that I've talked to One in particular says that he really likes him, but at the same time, it's a long season. But I'm going to tell you right now, he's the leader of this team, and what he did against Alabama was off the charts. And then against South Carolina, there was one time I looked down at the stats at a TV timeout, and we had 11 assists, and he had 10 of them.
Yeah,
and
wow.
We're playing shorthanded without Duke Miles and without Frankie Collins, and he's just basically taking over the game. And that's the one thing he can do at his size. He can take over a game because defensively he can get after people. He anticipates steals. He finishes at the rim. He's starting to shoot the ball from the perimeter. Assist-wise, he knows how to get the ball to the open man. He's hitting on all cylinders right now.
And the weird thing is, like, I don't see a big weakness in his game, but like he just keeps getting better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's hard work too. Don't get me wrong. It's not like this thing just happened overnight.
Right.
I think the kid works really, really hard. I think the coaching staff works with him, in the off season, in days off, that kind of thing. He's just, he's a little undersized, and you think, well, can he really take the pounding in the SEC? But I think his athleticism is like unique, like really unique. Whether it's the one thing I always hated to play against was guys that could change speed all the time. And Tyler Tanner is a perfect example of a guy that plays at different speeds. I thought one of the key plays of the game against Alabama the other night is when Duke Miles and A.K. Okereke fouled out of the game. And those are the two guys that kind of helped bring the ball up the court. He basically was by himself. And he gets trapped over there in front of the Alabama bench. And there's two guys on him, a third guy coming at him. And he got knocked off balance a little bit. But all of a sudden, he got his foot through and then got his shoulders through and split that double team. And he went from 0 to 90 where nobody was going to catch him once he got through that double team. I thought that was one of the biggest plays down the stretch, was his ability to split that double team and then create a foul and get to the free throw line.
Another guy I've talked about a lot, Jalen Washington. He's having his best year. Now, he's struggled a little bit more like against Alabama, but like he's been very good for them from, I don't know, third or fourth game of the season on. What has this staff gotten out of him that North Carolina didn't?
Well, I talked to Brad Frederick, who was at Vanderbilt for years and years with Stallings. And when we got Jalen Washington, and I called him when we signed him and I said, hey, tell me about this kid. He looks like a pretty nice specimen. I mean, he's a 6'10", whatever. And he said, Tim, the guy's really talented. He just had been injured a lot. And physically, he just, was kind of under the weather. But he said, I'm telling you, if he can stay healthy, he really can help you. And when it all kind of clicked, I think, for Jalen was the second game of the Bahamas. And I believe we were playing
St. Mary's.
Well, no, that was the finals, but it was the game before that.
VCU.
Yeah, we were playing VCU. And he had just a monster game. And from that game on, he has just been like another person. I mean, he's very confident. He gained a lot of confidence. And from that time on, I mean, if you go back and look at his numbers, they're really nice. And of course, he's coming off the bench, but he's a great kid. Doesn't I don't think need to be starting. He understands his role and he wants to win. And that's the mentality that, Coach Byington has with these guys, is always be ready and, make an impact when you come in, because we all want to win. You think about back that Alabama game, Chris, and all of a sudden, getting in foul trouble, and Mike James comes in, and he hadn't played a lot throughout the whole season, but he jumps up and knocks down a big three right in front of where Kevin and I sit. And that was a huge shot.
Yeah. One from Tanner, or no, Washington
Tanner
kicked, or was him or Washington kicked it? I don't remember now.
One
but anyway.
Two. Yeah. And, so all of a sudden, boom, he steps up, knocks down a big three. Tyler Harris, who hadn't played great that game and hadn't shot the ball well during the game, he jumps up and knocks down a big three from the opposite wing. And so we've just had guys that have stepped up and played. And again, I think that's Coach Byington letting everybody know that it may not be tonight, it may not be tomorrow night, but it may be the next night that we need to have you come in. And whether it's defense, rebounds, scoring, whatever, these guys step up and make big plays.
What's happened to Tyler Harris? Because it was so good out of the gate, and then he kind of fell back into almost irrelevance. And then he's jumped up a couple of times and had some, games where he contributes. I mean, I thought at the first of the year, this kid's going to maybe be a star, and he still might. His shot setup is just so unorthodox. I mean,
yeah,
I can't imagine. I mean, obviously that's the way he feels most comfortable shooting the ball. I don't really get it, but what's your analysis of him?
Well, you're right. In the beginning of the season, you could tell he could really be big help, and he struggled for a little bit. And then at the Wake Forest game on the road, he really came in and gave us a huge lift. I think he scored 16 points in that game. Kind of got his confidence back a little bit. And anytime that you're considered a shooter and the ball's not going in the basket, I think it probably messes with your mentality a little bit. And I think that's probably where he is right now. Really good kid. I think, he works hard and he's going to get it back. The staff, they're going to get him back into the rhythm of being able to shoot, because if he plays well and he shoots the basketball well, we're a different team, because now all of a sudden you add that extra 3-point shooter that guys just can't guard. And if you watch the Wake Forest game, I mean, we literally cooked those guys from everywhere. And it was because we had Tyler Nichols shooting threes. We had, Duke Miles shooting threes. We had Tyler Harris shooting threes. Everybody was knocking down shots. And when we have everybody rocking and rolling like that, we are nasty. I mean, we are nasty.
When do you think they get Collins back?
I don't know. I mean, I've talked to people that doctor guys that, meniscus stuff. And I've had my own meniscus surgeries, and, I think it all depends on how damaged that cartilage was, whether they just had to trim it or whatever. But my own opinion is, and this is just my opinion, I think it's probably the end of January, because that looks to me like the timeline of where, I've Googled meniscus, rehabilitation, just to kind of see. And that's kind of would be my guess, would be the end of January. I mean, it might be before, it may be later. I'm not sure.
Okay. Let's go to the mailbag. As we told you earlier, that is presented by our friends at Sutherland and Belk. Let's see. Anchor Down Douglas, talk about Nichols' development, more than just a 3-point specialist. Coming off a double-double, he spoke to his goal to become known for his defense in the TV interview on the SEC Network. Do you see him as a well-rounded guy, and what else could he do?
I think he's really improved over the summertime. Of course, he's always been, a brilliant shooter. I mean, the guy can stroke it from anywhere. And, I think you probably saw the 3-pointer he hit against LSU, which was, I thought it was deep when I was doing the radio the other day, and then I saw the replay on it, and I was like, wow, that was even deeper than I thought. It was a good 2-3 steps outside the NBA line. So number one, he can do that. That's his forte, is he can shoot the ball. What he's done now, and I think he's developing into the offense, is that Coach Byington has him moving without the ball. I mean, the way that Coach Byington sets up his offense, there's a lot of movement. And when that ball moves and there's screens set and guys are moving without the ball, he's getting better shots. Then the other thing, and I've asked him about this in post-game interviews too, is, really last year, Jason Edwards and really Tyler Nichols, they were the two guys that were really our 3-point shooters consistently. Well, now this year, Tyler Tanner's knocking down 3-pointers. You got A.K. Akariki that's knocking down 3-pointers. Tyler Harris has been knocking down 3-pointers. Duke Miles knocks down 3-pointers. So now all of a sudden they can't get up underneath nickel and make him put it on the floor and pressure him like that. They've got to be honest. And when other guys are hitting perimeter shots, that just makes Tyler Nichols' job so much easier because he can move without the basketball and create shots for himself. The second thing that I think he's done, and he did this a couple times the other night, he's 6'8" probably, and he's one of those guys that is not going to probably beat you off the dribble, but he can take it off the dribble 2 or 3 dribbles, and when he drives you into the lane and then does that drop step fade away, he's just such a good shooter. It's really hard to guard that shot at his size. When it's almost like a Larry Bird step back. He drives his body into you, plants, and then steps back. And then when he puts that ball over the top of his head, unless you're coming from behind him, you can't block that shot. And that's a shot that consistently he's been knocking down throughout the years, that little mid-range fadeaway.
Couple of questions from Steve VU98. Which teams in the league will be the toughest matchups for us?
Well, again, I kind of thought, Alabama would be a tough matchup for us, but, they didn't play as good a defense as I anticipated. I think Arkansas is a tough match. I think defensively they're better than Alabama. And then, the one I've always said is, Florida, they're not as good at the guard position. Okay. They lose Clayton and Richards. Those two guys I know Boogie Flan's a good player, but he's no Walter Clayton. And Richards, it was a great shooter, great team guy. I don't think Florida's guards are as good as they were last year, but they're big guys. Houck, Handlockton, those guys, I'm telling you, they're nasty. And I think that probably would give us the biggest problem is just that huge inside presence. And then as many guys as they have coming off the bench. They have 4 guys at that close to 7 feet that they can just, keep rotating on you.
Yeah, that my Florida would be my answer too.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think that's the biggest one would be Florida, and we're getting ready to find out on Saturday. I think it's going to be a great game. I think that our guards can do some damage against their guards. And then, they're going to, I would say Houck's probably going to be a guy that's going to guard nickel. But, we have a bunch of weapons, and Florida, they're not sleeping on us either, because I think they got to be worried of how they're going to guard all the arsenal that we have available to us.
Yeah, I give Vanderbilt a pretty big edge in the backcourt, starting 2 guards. I'll take those 2 over Boogie Flan and Xavier Lee any day.
Yeah.
Flan's talented, but I think Vanderbilt's got the athleticism to keep up with him. He's having a hard time shooting from distance. Now, the front court that's going to be – but, I mean, we saw a little bit of that in the Virginia exhibition. I know you were there, and I thought, okay, that's a team with a lot of size that could give them trouble. I thought Virginia was a pretty good team. That ended up being right. So we've seen them get a taste of that once.
Well, and I think one of the keys is us, if we can turn Florida over and get into transition and make sure that we defensive rebound against them, don't let them have second chance opportunities, and then push the ball up the court, I think we have a definite advantage over Florida in that scenario.
Yeah. One way to negate their length and size is to get in a game of transition, which they're very good at doing. So, let's see. This also from Steve VU98. This is the best Vanderbilt team since when?
I would say since McCaffrey, Elder, Anglin, Ronnie McMahon. That was Fogler's big team. I think these 2 teams are close in what they bring to the table with an arsenal of weapons. It's just not one guy. There's a number of guys that can score. They got guys that do dirty work. I remember, Kevin Anglin, he's one of those guys that I think CM Newton recruited him at the very end of CM's career, and then Eddie took over. But I always thought Kevin Anglin was a guy that was so valuable to that team. And, he played defense. He could guard a 3. He was tough enough to guard a 4. He's one of those guys that if you needed an outside shot, he wasn't a great outside shooter, but he was good and he was competent. And, then you had Elder on that team, another guy that was, kind of a dirty guy. You had, McMahon. I mean, I just think this team is very similar with the amount of weapons and the kind of personnel that, like a guy like A.K. Akariki, I think he's one of those guys that he's just so cerebral. He's really a smart guy, understands the game, doesn't really have to score, understands his role that he's going to guard a 4. He's going to potentially guard a 5 every now and then. On a high ball screen, he can guard a 2. He can control. I think on a high ball screen, he can control a point guard with his size and strength. He's not one of those guys that, is going to try to steal the ball from a point guard, but he can control him. And I just like his game and the way that he is involved in our offense. And he's not one of those guys that has to get certain numbers. He just lets the game come to him.
Yeah, he's kind of their Swiss Army knife. He can do some of everything, and I think every team needs one. Like Chris Magnon was kind of that guy last year. I think maybe Magnon was a better defender. I think Magnon's in the NBA now, isn't he? Like he made a roster.
I think he's on a 2-way contract with the Lakers, my understanding.
And
I think he's played a few games with the Lakers, but he's one of those guys that could guard multiple positions. I would say Magnon's probably more athletic than AK. But
AK is more advanced offensively, more polished.
Yeah. Like shooting it from the perimeter, that kind of thing. The one thing that I love about AK is even if he's guarding a guy that's smaller than him, let's just say, for instance, a 2 guard comes off a high ball screen and tries to go to the basket. He's not reaching. He's not doing anything. He's just kind of controlling him with his big, huge body. And, what he does is he doesn't have to, be crazy quick. He just needs to get to the side of him, and he uses that big strength and that big body to kind of knock him off balance, make him shoot a tough shot over the top of him. I just love his game and the way he plays.
I do too. When they signed him, I thought I think that's a great get for them because he just does so much. It's unbelievable to me. I presume you've heard the story. Like he was just going to go to, where was he? Cornell.
Yeah.
And just be a student. Like he wasn't going to play basketball. How does that happen with a guy as talented as he is?
Well, I think, it's one of those things where he is so smart and he was going to get an education and probably wasn't recruited big time. Gets there and says, hey, I wouldn't mind maybe trying out for the basketball team. He gets there and coach says, okay. And next thing you know, he's like first team all Ivy League or whatever last year. And the one thing I think that people don't realize is how good a passer he is. I mean, he's, he gets the ball down low and he backs people down and he gets a little head fake. He'll bounce past to McLaughlin or Washington or whatever. He's a really, really good passer for his size.
Yeah. Let's see. This one is from Bex 4VU. Can you compare and contrast this team to the 92-93 team that you just talked about?
Yeah, I think they're similar. I mean, they're different to a certain extent. I just think that they have a mentality, a winning mentality. And again, you think back on that, the coach was Eddie Fogler back then. And Eddie Fogler's mentality, similar to Coach Byington, is, he expects to win. He expects you to play hard all the time. He didn't want anybody to get, too caught up in who gets credit for anything other than winning basketball games. And I think that's the mentality that I like more than anything. And both those two teams shared is the winning expectation. Like I'm telling you, Chris, like when I'm on the bus going to games now, I'm like, we're going to win. We're going to win.
Experience, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. We're going to win this game, and it's just not me, but I'm around the players and around the coaches, and that's what they expect too. And all of a sudden I've started to, see this team from the very beginning all the way through. Like we went down to the Bahamas, and I just felt like every time we walked into that gym, we were going to win. And then it got better and better. And we went to South Carolina, and I'm like, we're going to win this game. I mean, I didn't not expect to win against Alabama, even though they're that good. I expected us to win. I expect us to win, on Wednesday when we go to Austin,
Yeah.
So that's the thing as a ex-player, the guy that does the radio and has seen so many teams over the years. That's the thing that excites me and it should excite the Vanderbilt fan base and that we expect to win. We don't need to rush the court. We don't need to rush the court on any team we play this year, because I can tell you right now, I think we're going to cook Kentucky. They roll in here, and we're going to get after folks. These students, they don't need to rush the court, because we're better than these teams that we're playing, and we should, all of us should expect to win.
Yeah. I applaud you for sticking out the last decade, my man. I mean, my goodness, that got, I mean, the 0 for conference season and then 5 years of stack. I think it just exhausted all of us.
Well, I'm a Vanderbilt guy. I'm a Vanderbilt fan. I mean, I've gone through a lot of ups and downs. I've been to Sweet 16.
But you haven't been through a down like that.
Yeah. But I've been to Sweet 16s, the SEC or the NCAA tournament last year. I mean, I don't know if it was more exhilarating for Coach Byington and the staff or me. I mean, like, I looked at Kevin Ingram when we got the invite, and I was like, are you kidding me? After what we've been through, we're going to the NCAA tournament, and, that's the exciting part about it, as, being an announcer. But again, the exciting part about it is knowing that, you're around really good people when, you're with the staff and the players and everything. And that's exciting to me.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan Taylor, for the super chat, $4.99. Really appreciate it. It says, keep it rolling, Commodores. Those are always appreciated here at the channel. A way to help us out, pay the bills, all those fun things. Let's see. Next one, Vandy Exile. Opinions on Chandler Bing seem to be all over the lot. What's your assessment? What needs work besides free throw shooting?
Well, let me just tell you, okay, they signed Chandler late, okay, and I'm not sure what the expectations were for him, but I think he got in here, and all of a sudden they started realizing that this guy's got an SEC body. And he understands how to play defense, and he really works hard. And I think they were a little surprised about how effective that he's been, because he's come in and really done some decent jobs defensively. Now, you talk about free throws. I always say, come on, man. Kid's a freshman, probably played the biggest game he's ever played in against Alabama. And you got to believe that the nerves there were, a little on edge. And again, he was 1 for 6, but hey, listen, I don't blame him. It wasn't like he was trying to miss him. And on all the other phases of the game, I thought he played his tail off. And that's going to get better. He's if you watch him shoot, he's got a really nice rotation on it. He is a good shooter, and he's going to be better. I think this kid can help us down the road because he's a smart kid, understands the game, and is very, very coachable.
Vandy Guy 96, any insights into whether Tyler Tanner leaves for the NBA after the season or runs it back?
Oh, man, I've had that question asked to me probably 10 times over the last 2 days. The thing, I know one scout that is a scout for the 76ers, and I asked him, what he thought. He said, well, he's a little undersized. He'd probably be, maybe a backup. But, who knows? I mean, last year you watched him play, and you would have never thought that he would have gone from last year to where he is this year. And I just think he's one of those kids that thrives on getting better. I think he's so athletic that, yes, he can play in that league. He might be undersized, but, you look at John Morant, you look at Chris Paul, you look at guys like that have been basically 6 feet and that have played in the league. I think athletically, he absolutely can play in the league. He's going to have to get bigger physically, stronger physically to play in that league. But I definitely think he's got a chance. Now, whether he leaves after this year, I don't know. I know he loves the guys that he's playing with, and he's a real leader on this team. It would probably take something pretty special, if you get drafted, if you're projected to get drafted in the first round, though, you almost have to go.
Yeah, I was going to say the good news and the bad news are the same thing. I think he's a first rounder right now from what I've been seeing and hearing.
So if he's a first rounder, that's guaranteed money for 3 years, and you can't fault him for making that jump. But it's not like if he stays that he's not gonna make any money.
Yeah.
Used to be first round pick or come back and go towards your degree. That's completely changed now. So
what's a degree?
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows what a degree is anymore. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure if anybody cares.
Yeah. No.
I think it's, the whole NIL and transfer portal thing has changed college athletics, college basketball forever. I'm not sure if it'll ever go back. But to answer your question, I think he can play in the next level, whether he gets drafted in the first round. I'm not sure. I'd have to, I'm sure it's going to take a little longer through the season before the scouts really determine, what they're doing.
Dan McGugan, do you think Nicholson or Leverett will see some more minutes when we face teams with big front courts like Tennessee and Florida?
Here's my opinion: is no, unless we get in foul trouble.
Yeah, that's my concern.
Yeah, that I'm not sure if, I'm not sure if we're gonna go to Nicholson or Leverett if McLaughlin and Washington and guys like that aren't in foul trouble. That's just me.
How does McLaughlin get fouls for just looking at people? I mean, I've never seen many kids that get I've seen sometimes he's been called for fouls. Like, I literally don't think he laid a fingernail on the guy.
Well, there was one in the second half that they replayed it, and I watched it on the monitor, and I was like, he didn't even touch him. It was almost like the refs bailed the offensive player out. Yeah. I'm not sure who the offensive player was, but he bailed him out. And I never thought Devin actually even touched him. But, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you watched the Alabama game the other night, and the first half was kind of what I anticipated. It was kind of up and down, up and down, up and down, 43 all at halftime. The second half came to just a screeching, grinding halt with, Alabama just putting their head down, driving to the basket, and it was, drive to the basket, foul, free throw, drive to the basket, foul, free throw. And so, when you shoot 88 free throws combined, both teams, then you're going to have a 3-hour game that we witnessed the other night.
Well, you say that the first half was, I don't remember your words, more free flow. I mean, that was only by comparison. There were a ton of fouls called in that half too.
Yeah.
Is it just me? Like, I feel like traveling has been legislated out of the game. Almost starting to feel that way about offensive fouls too.
Oh, and I've said this to Kevin that, I mean, it's almost like they will not call an offensive foul.
Yeah, I know.
And I thought there were multiple travels in that Alabama game where guys got out of control. They were falling down, and the refs, they basically bailed them out by calling a foul on Vanderbilt. And I just thought they were out of control. Yeah. But the charge, I think, is just basically non-existent unless it's a a chicken wing where you push
Yeah.
off with your arm. But if you're
Yeah.
driving to the basket and somebody sets up, and even though they are established and set up, the referees, they're not calling it. It's a block every time.
Yeah.
So,
Nickel got called for one the other night where he rotated over. Right leg was still moving, but like, oh, good grief. Who's their primary ball handler? Not Holloway, but the other one. LeBaron Fila just, I mean, ran right through him.
Yeah.
And it was a foul on Nickel. The other one, in the second half, you probably remember this one too. McLaughlin was backpedaling as Phylon was going to the rim in transition.
Yeah.
And Phylon tripped. And I don't think Devin touched him, and they whistled Devin for a foul.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where there any contact that if a guy is going to the basket, the defensive player is going to get the foul. It's like there's no way there's nothing more now calling offensive charges.
Yeah. And by the way, my point of that was not to say Vandy got the short end of the officiating stick. Those are just the examples that I remember. I just think officiating to me feels like it is as bad as it has ever been. Why is that? And am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just gotten to the point where it's almost like officials, especially like with the block charge thing, know, they're bailed out all the time because the mentality is nobody's going to call a charge. So they just call it on the defensive player. And then it's, that's my frustration is it really puts the defensive player at a disadvantage if you're not going to give him the opportunity to establish position and draw charges and have some semblance of, equal contact when you're going up.
Is it just me too? I feel like officiating is like Congress. You look at a bunch of old guys, you're like, how are you keeping your job?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think there needs to probably be some new blood in the league. But again, I don't know what that process is. But again, it's a really physical game, and it's they need to clean it up a little bit, but I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Let's see. There was a question about Tyler Harris. We got to that earlier. Let's see. Charleston alum says compare men's and women's basketball. What's the secret sauce for each?
Oh gosh. I think good coaching. I mean, to me, that's if there's a secret sauce to both teams being undefeated, I think it starts with really good coaching. And I think Vanderbilt has that both at the men and women's. And then, potentially you might have one of the best players in the country in Michaela Blakes, with, women's basketball. She's unbelievable. But I think that understanding high school recruiting, understanding NIL, and understanding the transfer portal is essential for any coach to be successful. And I think both our coaches understand that.
And I think feels like good program culture both places too. I'm not as familiar with the women's program. I mean, you can't not know something about it as good as they've been, but I don't hear a lot of negative coming out of either program.
Right. Yeah. I think there's good culture. And, again, good culture, good players, tend to equate to winning basketball.
Pessimistic Dora, what do you think will be the most important SEC game moving forward?
Oh man. Well, if you talk to Coach Byington, he's going to say the next one.
The next one.
The next one. Which is that's the way you should think about it. But I mean, I would say Florida at home and Arkansas on the road would be the
those are mine too. I almost think more Florida at home because it's protecting your home court. Like if they go to Arkansas and lose, everybody would understand it. If they lose to Florida at home, people would they, big teams or whatever. I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah, I think those two games, in my opinion, one being on the road, one being at home, are the two most consequential games.
Yeah, I mean, not that they care about perception or really should. I do think Florida will be telling because that's a team that's got them outnumbered big time with big men.
Yeah.
So I think to me that's probably the one I'd circle. VU Superior 7, any rumors of Memorial renovation, and what would you like to see in renovation specifically as it relates to second and third level suites and or premium club seating?
Well, you're asking, I mean, and again, this is one man's opinion. And I think that we have to do something. Yeah. And again, this is Tim Thompson's opinion. I think they could take, I guess, 2L and 2F be behind, that second level. You have the bottom seats in that 2 section, and then there's that mid level.
I
think they could knock that whole thing completely out and put high level donor area where you have free drinks, free food. You've got everything where you can come out and you can watch the game over, the top of you have high tops and all this kind of stuff. So you have high level stuff there. And then on the other end, you do the same thing, but you have the ability where anybody can come. If it's, Tim Thompson and his family that are not high level donors, and we want to go into the suite, we pay for our food and our drinks and all that kind of stuff. To me, those 2 areas could be, put into those kind of suites. Then I think that second level, above the student section and above, sections A, B, C on that side, you could knock those out, put really high level boxes in there. Not sure how many seats you would lose. And to be honest with you, I don't care. If we can maintain 9,000, 9,500 seats in Memorial Gym and have those kind of venues where it's a really good basketball experience for people that want to buy, suites, want to, come eat and drink for free if you're high level donors, or just go pay for it yourself. But I think what I've seen in the football stadium, they've done some of that, very similar to that. I think it has to be done in Memorial. If you're gonna go big time and you're gonna say you're gonna compete for championships and national championships, I think you got to do something with Memorial Gym.
Just for a revenue standpoint.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hate it. I mean, you and I grew up in that place when if it was a big game, you just knew every seat was full.
Yeah.
And I keep waiting for that. There's 14 and change in there again. Maybe the Alabama game would have gotten there if it were a 6:00 Saturday game or a 2:00. Maybe, who knows? I was a little disappointed LSU. They had 90 something there. And maybe that's I don't know if that's our clue that, it's not getting back there or what. I mean, to be honest, them being good at basketball is still kind of fresh again. So I don't really know, but I don't know. I would love to see it the way it used to be. I know you would too.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, Chris, when I played there were 15,626 in there every night.
Yeah. When it was like that and it was loud, it was the loudest thing I've ever been in.
Yeah. But at the same time, things change. You understand that there's, how many games a week, a day on TV. Yeah. And so there's people that are, have kids that won't come to a Wednesday night game that's at 8:00 because they have school and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Back in the day, it was just one game. It wasn't, 7 games.
Tip-off was the same time.
Right. So it's different. And I think that's the reason that Vanderbilt can get away with making adjustments on Memorial. You don't lose the integrity of Memorial.
Yeah.
I think you enhance it. And I think that's what we have to do. And even if I'd rather have 9,500 in there and people going nuts and having that. And then the demand for the tickets go up too.
Yeah.
You know, where that's a hard ticket to get. That makes
You might not have
to
5,000 Tennessee or Kentucky fans in the building too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they need to do something either way. And I hate to say this, but it's just kind of, maybe I'm just used to it now. I remember before there was coats of paint, it was just cinder blocks and it had some charm, but now it's just kind of getting old and almost dingy.
Well, how old is it? I mean, at 1952
ish.
Yeah. I mean, do the math on it. It is.
Those bleachers probably were in there when the thing was built. The wood benches. So.
Yeah. So, I think it has to be done. And I know Coach Byington wants it to be done. I think he feels like, you go to the Huber Center and I'm telling you, I worked for Nike for 25 years. I was in every, big time basketball practice facility you could ever imagine. And the minute I stepped in the Huber Center, I was like, whoa, this is beyond anything that I've ever been in. And I'm telling you, I mean, the Huber Center might be the best practice facility in the entire United States, hands down.
Which is weird that they built it right at the time when, NIL started coming in and the focus shifted elsewhere. But I have to think as the money kind of evens out, that comes back around to help you more in the future, I would guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you say all you want to, but where the kids spend most of their time is what the kids want. And like that Huber Center is first class, second to none. And when you come to Vanderbilt, you're going to play in Memorial Gym in front of a great crowd. And then you get to do all your weight workouts and all your other workouts in elite Huber Center. I mean, and that's a great recruiting tool to have, I think.
I've heard through the grapevine that renovations to Memorial are about to be, I don't know if priority is the word, but maybe I don't know, on the drawing board, but they're at least a discussion point. In a way, it feels like that's maybe going to be one of their next priorities. I don't know what that means, but you probably heard something similar, I would presume, or have you not?
I really haven't. I mean, I've heard they're talking about it, but it's just like anything else. When you win, people want to come, and then all of a sudden it becomes more of a priority. When you compete for championships and you've got a real high level team, and I just think it's the next step in order to do that.
All right, a couple more. I'll get you out of here. Joe Fisher or bring. Do we have the horses to bring? Excuse me, getting my words tangled. Do we have the horses to make a serious run to the Final Four?
Well, and again, I've been around basketball a long time. It all depends on your draw.
The draw.
And I think that's essential is, you look, you're there on selection Monday and you think, okay, let's just say we're number 2 seed, 3 seed, whatever it is. And all of a sudden you start looking out and saying, oh, okay, that's a good draw. That's not a good draw. It all depends, in my opinion, on the draw and then how you're playing at the time. If you're playing at a high level, if you're on an upswing. And, do I think we can get to the Final Four? If you'd asked me that at the beginning of the season, I would have said, I don't know about this. But the more I watch this team and how many weapons we have, I think it's all about if we get a good draw, we have the ability to get to the Final Four.
All right, several questions about Mark Byington and the staff. I'm just going to kind of condense these into one. This from Steve E79. What's the biggest challenge to retaining Mark Byington? Is it NIL location, recruiting grounds, or championship potential?
Well, ultimately, it comes down to making sure that Coach Byington is not at a disadvantage when it comes to NIL. So he can go out because I think he and his staff are unbelievable at evaluating talent and are going to say, okay, this guy's going to help us. This guy's going to help us. But you got to have money to do that nowadays. And I think that's one of the most critical things that you have to have going forward, is to be able for Coach Byington to know that he can compete in this league at a high level, because he wants to win, and he wants to win championships. And I think those kind of expectations lend itself to, needing more money at the NIL level to pay players.
Yeah, that's been a big topic behind the scenes, I think. At least it has in my circles, probably yours too.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't make any difference, what school it is.
Yeah.
If you're in the SEC, you better have the ability to spend money on NIL if you're going to compete at a high level.
What do you believe Kentucky actually paid its roster? I mean, I can't believe that's a $22 million roster.
Well, I've watched them 3 or 4 times, and if that's a $22 million roster, somebody's not getting their money's worth.
Right.
Again, I know they've had, some injuries and that kind of thing, but still, and again, I harken back to evaluating talent.
Yeah.
I look at their roster, and I don't think their roster is as good as ours. Close, not even close.
Yeah. Well, I guess, yeah. I mean, they've got some serious. I guess better way to put it is what are these guys really getting paid versus what is reported? Because I hear big disconnects in football that what's out there and what's actual are not even close. Now, I don't know how much that's true and how much that's not. I just my stance is I don't believe anything on NIL that I hear. I don't take anything at face value. But what's your opinion?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I have no inside information on what anyone's getting or what they're being paid. I know what's happening, but yeah. I couldn't tell you what anybody on our team is making. And to be honest with you, I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's one of those deals where I think Coach Byington and staff went out and established a roster. And, once you get that roster in place, you got to coach them, and you got to win games. And that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. How much were guys getting paid before NIL?
Well, it would depend on where you were. If you're Kentucky, LSU, back when Dale Brown, all those, that kind of stuff.
Right.
It probably is not as much as it is now, but
yeah,
there were some guys getting paid, no question.
Yeah. Well, hey, Tim, I didn't mean to keep you an hour. I should have expected it. I knew people were going to have questions, and you're fun to talk to. This is great. I'm hoping we can get this back.
Yeah.
On a regular basis again. Okay.
More than happy to do it. And let me just tell you right now, I just think that Vanderbilt fans out there, if you've not seen this team play, you need to come in person. You need to come in person and watch them play. Just the camaraderie between the players, the excitement that is in that gym. It's like LSU. We didn't play great in the second half. All of a sudden, game's over, and we scored 84 points, and we won by 11. So we found a way to manufacture points, and this team finds a way to win. And if you want to get into a situation where you want to jump into a gym and have a ton of excitement and watch a fun team to play, come to Vanderbilt, come to Memorial Gym and watch these guys. They're worth the admission.
Yeah, I second all that. Hey, Tim, maybe we do it again next Monday. Always appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening to and watching the Vandy Sports or Vandy 24/7 podcast. Boy, old habits die hard. Also, we were brought to you by John Levin and Womble Bond Dickinson, friends of the show. Help us out. Give us a good rating here, podcast platforms, whatever, and subscribe to Vandy247.com. For Tim Thompson, I'm Chris Lee. God bless you. Have a great rest of your week. You've been watching the Vandy 247 podcast presented by FanDuel.